Hey there, Dingo Stu here. Today's video is about removing the oil seals from the trawler's gearbox, about beginning to install a crane onto the deck, and is proudly sponsored by MarineEngine.com. Can't really start today's video without first talking about the Land Rover. It's not very often I am lost for words, and I definitely am today. You know, I'm going to burst into tears if I talk about it. It's terrible. But this morning I cancelled the ad to sell the car, and it's all because of you guys, you know, from people who donated on PayPal to became patrons on Patreon, who bought a t-shirt, you know, even down to just words of encouragement saying, look, hang in there, don't sell your car, you know, find another way. And you guys found another way, I didn't. So I can't thank you enough. I'm keeping the car, I'm really happy about it, and let's push on before I start crying. Thank you. With the patches under where the stands were, I wire wheeled them, ground them, got them as smooth as I can. There was a little bit of a depression here, so I just did a little bit of pad welding up here. Now I'm going to get a 40 grit sander onto it just to rough it up a little bit, and we'll put that Ultralock 576 epoxy primer onto there now. Put a nice new pad on so we can kind of get the sharpest cuts we can. I've just cleaned up those patches to put the epoxy on, but I'll let them dry for a little bit. So in the meantime, I'm going to get the oil seals out of this gearbox so we can put new ones in, given there was water in the oil. A few places it could have come in from, the oil seals, obvious choice, the oil cooler is another possibility, and also this, which I presume is an oil temperature sender, is snapped off, and when I took the gearbox out, oil leaked out through it, which means water could have got in through it as well. Alright, just get this split pin out, then we'll spin this castellated nut off and then pull the flange off. Okay. Alright, what size is this? Oh, look at that. It's that 36mm. Nice and easy. I was expecting to get the puller out, but too easy. So the oil seal runs on the outside here of the flange, so we'll give that a clean up as well. The nice thing about that is with outboards, for example, the oil seal runs on the outside of the prop shaft, so you can be really careful not to nick the prop shaft when you're getting the oil seal out. In this case, we can just pry it out with a big screwdriver or something. There's almost no damage you can do. There we go. Alright, I'm going to take this up to John at North Shore Bearings in Hornsby, because he'll be able to find one and it'll cost so much less than an original part. The only difference with these oil seals is that often the spring inside is stainless steel. So it was John who gave me the tip of actually just finding a nitrile O-ring that puts about the right tension, buying a cheap oil seal, taking the mild steel spring out, putting the nitrile O-ring, and good to go for a marine environment. Although the oil is emulsified, you can still see a tiny bit. There wasn't any actual water in there that had separated, so I can't see any corrosion here, and there's no play at all in the output shaft, so I'm actually pretty happy to leave that bearing, I think. We're already well over budget, so this gearbox worked beautifully. It was actually one of those things that people often comment how smooth the gear changes were. So let's just put new oil seals in and repaint it and leave it at that for now. I don't want to get any of this grit into the bearing, so actually while I think of it, I'm just going to carry this over to the metal plate over there and finish up over there. Alright, might get the crane before I pop a foo-foo valve. See a bit more emulsified oil dripping out, but I'm happy just to have it off the ground for now. It's probably the best place to work on it. Alright, that's nice and easy. The bearing on the input side looks a little bit rustier. No play. It's very mild. Do I want to open this whole gearbox up to get that out? No is the answer, but do I have to is the real question. Anyway, we'll give it a clean up. I'll cover this so that this grit, as we clean, we don't get any of this inside the bearing and make it any worse than it is right now. Here those are other oil seal, which has to be pushed down with this. So we'll just punch that out and then we'll take them both up to North Shore Bearings. Looks like this is actually a oil seal housing, then goes into the plate. Kind of makes sense, probably universal plate, put a housing in that matches the drive shaft diameter. I'll take the housing with me too. I don't think it ever hurts to have as many reference points as you can when you're buying an aftermarket oil seal. What I'll also do is just put the caliper around the shaft itself, get some measurements before we make the drive. $30mm exactly. And we've got the housings, we've got the outside diameter, that's fine. So we'll take everything with us, the two oil seals, the oil seal housing, and the flange that the oil seal runs on. That should give us everything we need. Now, I've also got to get a oil seal for the rudder post, so I'll measure that up as well, and we'll get all three oil seals while we're there. Hiding under here is our brand new rudder post. That got made a while ago, it's just been sitting here waiting. Got the square end so we can put an emergency tiller on. But, 0. I don't know why this thing's flashing. I thought it meant low battery. I put a brand new battery in and it's still doing it. So what have we got? 37.8mm. That'll do. So I'll go write that down. And yes, I've still got 2 more bags of concrete to get out, and then a whole lot of painting to do back here where I pad welded the whole transom and my patch. Alright, anyway, up in here, outer diameters 56.75. As you guys managed to save the Land Rover from being sold, I figured I may as well give you a quick sticky beak too. A few people have asked to have a look at the car, and now seems like the appropriate video, so I'll show you a few things quickly. So they were all built for the Australian Department of Defence originally, and this one's 1991. So the military put out a tender with a spec and said who can make a truck that, you know, fits all these criteria. A few of them were kind of interesting. You have to be able to lift it from any one corner without the chassis flexing, that kind of stuff. And the Parenti, which is what this is called, was the kind of, you know, the winning tender. If we get underneath it, the whole chassis, the ladder frame chassis, has been hot dip galvanized, so that's good from a corrosion point of view. The engine in it's a Isuzu 3.9 litre. Just a very simple Isuzu 4-cylinder 3.9 litre naturally aspirated diesel engine. Plenty of torque, not particularly quick on the road, but you know, it'll do 110 on the freeway, so that's fine. I put a power steering kit in it, didn't come in power steering. It's much nicer to drive with power steering now, that's for sure. All the body's aluminium, so once again, no corrosion issues. There you go, a little bit of metal here, but bulk of it's all aluminium. So galvanized chassis, aluminium body, soft top as you can see, but there's a rollover protection bar in it as well, which is great. A couple of jerry can holders spare under there, and a combination pintle hook tow ball thing. Bit of storage on the sides. Seats are all made from fine Italian leather, so that makes them nice and easy to clean. Bit of degreaser should do it. Nice. Look at that, good as gold. Somebody said to me, you know, don't get in your car wearing a pair of white dress pants, but don't ever get into white dress pants, seriously. See, that's like new now. Inside this blackout stuff for just cutting all the lights so you can be on some sort of mission and, you know, whatever. Little map reading lamp. Same here, just for keeping minimal light in the car. Somebody said, oh, it was a Land Rover, so you had to have a cover for all the warning lights if you got warning light fatigue, which even I thought was pretty funny. Low range, high range gearbox, and then a centre diff lock as well. Here the windows, locks, and they open and close, which is kind of cool. Anyway, that's the tour. Off track, I know, but I feel I can let myself fall in love with it again now it's staying. Alright, now let's get back to the boat. Alright, we'll get a batch of this 576 mixed up, and I'm going to paint the patches under the stands and the first two compartments I've done in the engine bay. Ages ago, when I was first looking to take the Detroit diesel out of the boat, I talked about having a spare crane that I was thinking I'd put on the boat and I could be a bit more self-sufficient in lifting the engine out. Turns out that, you know, this engine just weighs too much to do that, both from the lifting limit of the cranes and just the strength of the deck where the crane would be mounted. But I am going to put it in anyway. The reason I want to put that in now is, as I was lifting the gearbox out of the dirt with the engine hoist just to sort of get it up and work on it, I thought, you know, the deck of the trawler is actually the perfect place to work on these smaller components. It's a hard surface, okay, it's not level, but it's clean, you know, somewhere I can just set up some sawhorses or something, have some tools up there. So what I'm going to do is install this crane now anyway, so that I can lift some of those components onto the deck, work on them, and then either lift them back onto the ground to go to the workshop, or just leave them there and bolt them on once the boat's, you know, the engine's back in the boat. In order to do this, I need to have the crane level, and the deck has this slope on it like this for drainage. So what I'm going to do is figure out exactly what that slope is, and that way I can make an adapter for the base of the crane that levels it up. I've put minutes into thinking about the best way to do this, so I'm sure you'll tell me a better way once you've seen this. But anyway, what I'm thinking I'm going to do is just pick an arbitrary distance from the centre here. Let's call it, say, 1 metre. I think longer is better. Alright. This would be easier with another person, wouldn't it? Can you hold that end for me? No, you can't, can you? Nothing against you, of course. It's just the limitations of technology. So, 1965. Let's draw that on a bit of paper and see if we can figure out what the angle is. So, we did 1 metre each side here, and we ended up with 1965 here. So, if we do this in half, so what's that? 9, carry the 1, 8, 2, is that right? 0.5. So what does it say? Cos the angle theta, is that what it is? Cos theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So there's probably even a trig calculator online, isn't there? Carbide Depot or something has a trig calculator. B is 982. Done. Calculate. Angle A apparently is 10 degrees. I've also got this little gizmo that I bought off eBay that measures an angle against level. So I might give this a go. The boat's not completely plumb sitting on the stands, so what I think I need to do is measure both sides and then sort of average it to figure out what the true angle is, and if it comes out close to this 10-11 degrees, then I think we can run with that. So I'll just jump in the Land Rover and go and get a battery for it. Okay, back from my drive into town to get some batteries. I haven't used this before. I've already thrown the instructions away, so Hera, cool. 2.6, 7.2. Gotta say, when I look across, that doesn't look like anywhere near 10 degrees either. I'm almost trusting this more. So 7 and 3, 10 degrees, halve it, 5 degrees. Half what the maths shows, but I've got to say, I'm not stoked with my measuring on my own. What else can I do to double check it? Drink beer, that'll help. What I could actually do if there was another person here is get a long straight edge and wedge it under the sponson on both sides and then measure the distance down to the straight edge. I think that would give me the most accurate measurement. I think I'm going to struggle to do that on my own. And do I have a long straight edge? I've got this timber, but I don't know how straight it is. It's got a bit of a bow in it. Dad was actually just here before. I didn't think to figure this out while he was here. Would have helped to have a second set of hands. Anyway. Now that reminds me. As well as the trip to Brisbane next week for the boat show, Dad's always had a bit of a dream to drive Route 66 in the US. And I said, oh, buy me a ticket, I'll come with you. And he said, all right. So he has, bless him. So September, we're landing in Washington, Dulles, I think it is, airport, and maybe trying to check out Chesapeake Bay for a little bit. Then we're going to go New York for a little bit. Then up to Vermont to see marineengine.com. Then coming back down to Chicago. Dad's only just retired. He's 78 and he's only just retired. He worked for Rotary International, which has got the headquarters in Chicago, so he's always in Chicago for Rotary stuff. Anyway, so we're going there. And then I thought on the way through, it'd be cool to go to Detroit and maybe see whether we can visit Detroit Diesel or something. I don't know. It'd be nice if someone works there or knows someone who does. It'd be great to see if they've got a little museum or something worth seeing. And then from Chicago driving down, then we'll go and see Doug from SV Seeker in Tulsa, and then drive on to LA and fly home. So that's happening for the whole of September basically. So it'd be nice to catch up with some people and see what we see. So I've just used that welding earth. Actually, I'll put a bolt in here and we can tie it around that. Oh, this is a bad one. It's probably strong enough. This I need to bring a tap in for. I tried that thread repair kit to clean the paint out and it's not working so well, so I'll bring a proper tap and die set for that one. Alright, bit of bricky string now across here. So if we find about here, it's not very precise, let's measure this distance, measure the beam of the boat as well, see what that gives us. So I'd say 135 degrees. These quarters are quite rounded, so it's hard to get an exact measurement here actually. Call that 1430. Part of me wants to figure this out. Part of me is already thinking how to possibly edit this to make it even vaguely interesting. Anyway, A is 135. Done. Calculate. Okay, so this is now with those measurements saying it's 5.4 degrees. So definitely much closer to 5. Alright, feeling more confident now. As soon as a couple of things start to agree with each other, you go, yeah, alright, that sounds about right. So I'm going to make a 5-degree wedge for the base of the crane, and then we'll attach that to the deck. I'm also going to have to think about how to attach it as strongly as possible. The crane claims to be able to lift about 800 kilos, 500 with a single line and 800 doubled up. So I don't want the deck to be the weak point. Actually, the crane's in the back of our truck at the moment, so let's go have a look at it. I've never unboxed this one, and I want to see what the base looks like. So I'll take the base home in order to make the wedge, but we can also have a think about where to position it too, and have a look at what's under the deck in that place. Alright, get a knife and cut these straps. Actually, that's not a knife. Yeah, that's a knife. Everybody needs one Crocodile Dundee moment in their life. So, here's our base. Interesting the way it's offset. Let's get this on board and I'll show you what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking is I want to have it, I would guess, thinking about here, means that it's not too much in the way, like you can still walk on board easily enough, get to the, you know, the stern. I want the jib, I want it to be forward enough so that it can reach and lift heavy things low through the door, but can also reach straight overboard and down. Because this isn't a hydraulic winch, it's a 12 volt winch like on the front of a full drive. Means we can run a cable straight down and actually use it for salvage stuff and diving or whatever, and you find something, you can hook it up and then use the winch just to pull it straight up and then swing it in through the door here. It could also be good for bringing a tender on board, so if I have like a little inflatable boat to get to the trawler, it'd be nice to be able to lift it, put it on the back deck. That's not ideal, it'd be great to store it off the transom somewhere, but it gives you another option. I would also dearly love for it to be able to reach the engine bay. Although it can't lift the whole Detroit diesel, it could, for example, lift the heat exchanger off or the gearbox off or something like that if it needed repair. From here it can also reach the lazarette if you have something heavy. My plan is to keep that petrol air compressor on the boat. It'll be great for diving operations, filling lift bags, air tools work well underwater, you just got to kind of keep oiling them or whatever so they don't corrode. But air tools are awesome for doing work underwater. So this is going to have quite a few different jobs to do on board, and I'm trying to make sure I can do them all. I think the critical thing is being able to swing through the door. I could cut a second door on the other side. Makes sense. Sometimes because of a strong current you can't always pull up port side 2. You just go, look, although, you know, the transverse thrust on the prop here pulls the stern into port, but the current's so strong I've got to be bowing to the current, so I've got to go starboard too. So it makes sense having a door both side. Anyway, as long as it's near one, I think we're in business. Alright, let's have a little sticky beak under the deck and see what we've got to work with here. See where it is there, I've got to check, obviously the longer you extend the jib, the less weight you can take. But if I had it somewhere above this bulkhead, surely that's stronger than having it floating away from a bulkhead. So I think that's got to be something I take into consideration when I install the crane. So what we need is our 5-degree wedge to get it level. Gotta say, I don't know if you can see, this deck is far from a flat plane. I'm almost thinking what I'm better off doing. How am I going to do this? Actually no, I could put the little measuring tool on here, lift this until it says 0, measure the height here and the height here. I might find they're not the same thing, you know, they're two different measurements, and that's fine. It's like Mario said when Petty and I were doing the door, you know, you've got to dance to the music. There's no point believing it's a theoretical flat plane and it's not even close. Of course, I've now just remembered the boat's actually not sitting 100% level, but we should be able to use our, 7.3 degree slopes to figure out what the angle is, what we need to add. How about we at least see what they are relative to each other, run with our theoretical 5 degrees, it's going to be close. The reality is on the water, you're going to have different loadings, you know, you might have different fuel in one tank, different people on board. It's never going to be spot on. I just don't want it to be canted off at a full 5 degrees. If I can get it to less than 1 degree, I'm probably happy with that anyway. When I was at the hardware store, I wasn't paying attention. I bought a square that's got inches on it. So I'll use this to please my American friends. Alright. So, well, actually what we can do with this, now I think about it, is I think if we zero it, then we can come up 5 degrees. I should shim it, shouldn't I, so I can see. Actually, I can just look at the video. I'll watch this video too. I can't see from this angle what the measurement is. But if I go, that's 5.1 degrees. So whatever that turns out to be. Alright, let's make that 0 again. And come up 5 degrees. 5.1 again, same as the other side. So I couldn't actually see those measurements, but I'll see them on the video later. And I think if I just make 2 wedges out of steel, the first one was the forward one, the second one was the aft one, and then I'll make a square to go on the back of them, and it's got to be close, you know, particularly for this exact bit of the deck, you know, not a sort of a theoretical number. I think that gizmo is actually really cool. It was like 15 bucks or something, so cheap. One of those classic eBay things that's just almost seems too cheap. And the fact that you can zero it's really good for those relative measurements, so I'm pretty happy with that. So what I'm thinking is this is the standard base. Then I've cut my little wedges to go underneath and bring it up to level. Then I can bolt through the factory holes under the deck with some big, you know, like homemade washers underneath or whatever. Then on the bottom I can have a plate that's larger than the 10-inch base already, and then I can weld the whole thing around as well. The idea then would be that it's positioned somewhere over one of the bulkheads so that it's, you know, even stronger again. And then maybe underneath I can do some flanges against the bulkhead, I don't know, something like that maybe. I saw in one of Damien's videos, I think he was doing something to do with the anchor winch or something like that, and he actually had some tube metal come down below the deck, and then I think what he called webbing, like some flat plate between the tubes, and the bolts were quite long, they went right through the tubes as well. And I can see how that adds a lot of strength, so we might do something along those lines. So thanks Damien, I'm going to pinch that from you. Alright, we'll wrap this video up here. I don't know where this week went, it sort of flew by. I don't feel like I got a lot done, but maybe we did. I guess at least the motor's now all at CDA and that's sort of happening. Parts are ordered, parts are paid for. You know, I can't thank you guys enough for the contributions you all made. It made an enormous difference. I probably didn't do a very good job of thanking you at the start of the video because I don't think I could have. I was a bit emotional about it, to be perfectly honest with you, and you know, it's not a small thing to me at all. It meant an enormous amount. So thank you. You know, seriously. I just hope at the end of the day we get a boat that we can all be proud of, and I hope one day to see a few of you guys on board as well. You know, we'll definitely have our meetups on board and cruise around. Big question I get often is what's the plan for the boat? Definitely to keep it. You know, it's my boat. I'm not going to sell it or anything like that. The reason I wanted this boat is because, as funny as it might sound, living in a place with no old Western history, 50,000-year-old Aboriginal history, but no, you know, Spanish treasure or anything like that. But I do have a passion for underwater sort of search and recovery type stuff, and that's kind of what I'm really excited about using this boat for. You know, I love diving, I love sonar, I love the idea of using the crane to bring something from below, lift bags, using the compressor, like I love all that kind of stuff. That's something just, since I was a kid, I've always found fascinating and really exciting. And they're the kind of adventures I hope to have on the boat, and I'll definitely be filming all of those as well. We've got a lot of work to do. Once the boat's back in the water, we'll start doing the top sides and fitting out the cabin and all that kind of stuff. but they're the types of things I want to get involved with using the boat once it's up to spec. So hopefully that answers another common question about, you know, what's the plans for the boat. You know, I like a bit of fishing and that kind of stuff too, but it's kind of the search and recovery thing that really floats my boat. All right, well, take care, guys. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye.